Mark Ruffalo asks in the YouTube chat, what do you think about a time travel mechanic coming back to a Zelda game? Yeah, because I guess we haven't had one since Majora's Mask.
Yeah, it has to be a mechanic and not a plot point.
Yeah.
Like Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword, it was just like a plot point. Like, okay, now you go through the Gate of Time, and there you are. You're in the past now. It's time travel.
Most Zelda games played around with time travel, but it was never really the focus. Like Skyward Sword had the time shift stones, and then towards the end of the game, they had the actual Gate of Time, where like you had to travel back and forth like 100 years or something like that. Breath of the Wild had the memories, where you could see the difference between the past and the present. Twilight Princess had the part where you go into the Temple of Time and it's all fixed and it's no longer destroyed. Daniel corrected me that Wind Waker, I assumed when you were in like where everything's black and white, I always thought that was in the past, but it wasn't.
No, because it's just
frozen.
Sort of frozen in time.
Yeah, but Majora's Mask was the last 3D game. I don't know if you would count like Oracle of Ages and Seasons, where like you're not really traveling through time, you're traveling through like the weather, basically. Like, oh, now it's
pretty much.
Now it's snow. No, it's spring. It's winter. Summer. Whatever. But yeah, Majora's Mask was the last one that like the main focus was time traveling, and I really hope they do bring it back, because I've said a lot of times like it's really interesting because you always get a second version of a world when you're playing a Zelda game. Like A Link to the Past had Hyrule and then the Dark World. Ocarina of Time had the past and the present, or the future and the present. Majora's Mask, you were constantly traveling back and forth. Twilight Princess had the Twilight Realm and the normal Hyrule. Skyward Sword had the Silent Realm and Hyrule. So like almost every Zelda game, there's obviously Lorule and A Link to the Past, but most of the Zelda games have Hyrule or whatever world they're in, and then a second version of that, whether it's the Twilight Realm, the Dark World, Lorule,
except Breath of the Wild, really.
Yeah, Breath of the Wild.
Wow. It's too much world already.
There's so much world. We don't need more world.
See, I thought the perfect DLC for Breath of the Wild, when everyone was theorizing what it would be, is when it ends with Zelda and Link standing on the hill talking like, oh, we need to go check on Mipha's dad and like Valruta or whatever. Like Valruta's messing up. We need to go check on it. Everything looks peaceful. I thought it would be cool if like it continues after that cutscene for the DLC, and it like looks up at the sky, and Zelda and Link look up, and the clouds and everything starts turning like really purple. So it's like they're being sucked into the Dark World, basically. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
that would be cool.
Yeah, and then it would like
Zelda would be like, Are you kidding me? She just like spent like 100 years in this castle. She'd be like, no, we're not doing this. No.
Yeah. So
like, I'm sorry, Link, but you're on your own. She like runs away or something.
So like, I'm leaving. I'm going to Termina. Call me when this is over. Yeah. So the time travel thing, I'm all for it. I hope they bring it back. Whether it is like an active part of the game where you're constantly traveling back and forth, like in Majora's Mask, or if it's something like Ocarina of Time, to where you can do it, but it's not really necessary but a few times. Right. Like you can play through the game and only travel back and forth like 2 or 3 times, and that's to do the Shadow Temple and then the Spirit Temple. That's like the only times that it's really necessary, but you can do it freely at any point. So I hope it's something like that, or Majora's Mask. Like I would love them, because Majora's Mask was originally a full 7 days as opposed to the 3 days. So if they revisited that to where it's like Breath of the Wild 2, but with like a 7-day schedule, to where it's like, here's on Monday you can meet this Goron is always at Zora's Domain at this time on Monday. And then on Tuesday, you can see him walking back to Death Mountain. And then Wednesday, you can see him like working, trying to get rid of the rocks. Like everyone has a schedule like Majora's Mask, but it's over 7 days. I would love that. And then you're constantly like having to go back and forth to figure out stuff. Like some of the side quests in Majora's Mask where like if you do one side quest and finish it, you can't do another because they either happen at the same time or one stops the other from happening. Like you can't the Sun's Mask and like the whole Cafe and Angie side quest.
Yeah.
You can't complete it in one go. Like it has to be done through time travel.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So long answer. I apologize, but what are you guys' thoughts? Time travel?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's like very fundamental to Zelda. So I think it'd be really, really cool to have a new game, like say in the Breath of the Wild style, or just something massive, and just open world. Basically, like, you know, if you could time travel between Breath of the Wild 100 years before and then your current, that'd be like so dope, right?
Yeah.
So I'd be down for a very large scale game with time traveling in it. So.
All right. And what about you, Daniel? What kind of time travel would you like to see?
Pretty much what you guys said. Yeah, as long as it's not like I said, as long as it's a real useful in-game mechanic that you can freely use and not just like a plot point where you go back for one portion and then you're back to the present. Majora's Mask has the best time travel in the series, hands down.
Yeah.
But if they did it like Ocarina of Time, but maybe like with the 100-year gap of Breath of the Wild, something like that, God, that would be still brilliant. So.
Yeah, because you see how much changes between 7 years and Ocarina of Time. So imagine the difference in 100 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and it would be really cool too, because like one thing in Breath of the Wild that always gets me is in the memories. It's 100 years before, but the trees are the same.
Yeah.
And I'm like, in 100 years, those trees would be so much bigger. They would, like, you know, something like that. So I'd love it if you travel back in time and there's like the trees are smaller and everything, or just different trees. And
no, there was
certain trees are being planted and then like you come back like later. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, like you could see an open field in the past, but in the future it's like a forest.
Yeah, an in-depth like real world time travel. That'd be pretty crazy.
And there's what Daniel was saying, there was actually something that confused me, because when you're looking for the memories by the pictures, there's one where it's like a little tree and a big tree. And I was thinking, okay, these were taken 100 years ago. So these two small trees I'm looking for are going to be the huge, massive trees by now. So I was looking for these giant two trees that were beside each other, couldn't find them. And then I seen like the two small trees beside each other and was like, for a game...
your brain's like, wait a minute.
Like, for a game that the entire purpose is like what happens 100 years between, like there's not much going on there in terms of like keeping it realistic. But I guess it's not really trying to go for realistic.
No.
So we will end, Daniel, with your question.
Okay.
So my question, RPG, who is very active in the Discord, I don't know if he's in the live chat right now, but he asked a few days ago, do you think another Zelda will be released on the Nintendo 3DS before its end? Now, think about this. For the 3DS, there's already Ocarina of Time 3D, A Link Between Worlds, Majora's Mask 3D, Triforce Heroes, Hyrule Warriors Legends. So there are 5 Zelda games if you include spin-offs. That's more Zelda games than any other Nintendo console ever. And you can play the DS games on the 3DS as well, plus all of the games that have released on the eShop. So there's like tons and tons of Zelda games you can already play on the 3DS. So it would make sense for them to just add another Zelda game to the 3DS. Like, it wouldn't matter much, but I imagine it would go to the Switch. I don't think they would release it on the 3DS at this point, but I would have thought the same about the Metroid Samus Returns. Like, they released it on the 3DS when I was like, why not release it on the Switch where people actually want to play it?
Yeah, so, I don't think they will. There's been a lot, so
no Zelda for 3DS.
I don't think so.
No. What about you,
no,
Daniel?
It would have to be. I can't see it on 3DS. It would be Switch. If they did a 3DS one, I think it would be just another remake or something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or they,
which I would still want on the Switch.
Or like a Link Between Worlds style for Link's Awakening or Oracle games. That would be cool.
And
okay.
I imagine that was one of the rumors a while back that we talked about, was that Link's Awakening was supposed to get and a Link Between Worlds treatment. But one of the, like, I think if it did come to the 3DS, then like 3 or 4 months later, you would see it also come to the Nintendo Switch. Like, you're already seeing a lot of games from the Wii U and the 3DS come to the Nintendo Switch. So I think it's obvious that if they did release a big 3DS game, it would eventually find its way on the Switch anyways. Similar to like Hyrule Warriors Legends came to the Wii U and 3DS, and then Fire Emblem Warriors, whatever, I forgot the actual title, but it released on the same day for the 3DS and the Nintendo Switch. Oh, there's a doggy.
Yes.
Where?
Yeah. So yeah, there are like games that have released side by side on the 3DS and then came to the Wii U or came to the Switch, and I think it would be something similar to Smash Brothers, where everyone wants it for the home console. So everyone would want it for the Wii U, like with Smash Brothers. And they know if they release it day and day on the 3DS and the Wii U, everyone's just going to buy the Wii U version.
Naturally.
So what I think they would do, and this is probably what they did with the Metroid game as well, they release it on the 3DS to get those people to buy it. And then everyone's just going to rebuy it anyway so they can play it in HD on the better console on the Switch. So it's like I fully expect at E3 they'll be like, Metroid Prime 4 is releasing at the end of the year, or like mid-2019. But you don't have to wait until then, because in 1 month, Metroid 2 releases on the Switch. So it's like a port of the 3DS game. And I would expect if they did release a 3DS Zelda game, the same thing would happen for the Switch. Again, I'm rambling. I apologize.
When you say Metroid 2, do you mean Samus Returns? The
yeah,
3DS
that was the second Metroid game, was it?
Oh yeah, it was a remake of Metroid 2, but I would like that.
Not Metroid
that would be
Prime
good.
2. Were you thinking Metroid Prime 2 when I said Metroid 2?
No, I just wasn't sure if you meant like the Game Boy or the 3DS Metroid Prime, or Metroid 2, sorry. But yeah, that makes sense. But I would like that. Because I really like that game.
Yeah, it already looks really good on the 3DS, so seeing what the Switch could do with it.
I'd be down.
Yeah. So, Daniel, you're taking us out.
Okay. There's a good question by Just Ux. I think this is on Discord. Do you think Twilight Princess and A Link to the Past exist at the same time, but because they're on basically separate timelines, they occur separately, but due to the different realities and parallels centered on Ganondorf's plans in the backstories of both games, basically.
Yeah. So, like, they would both take place at the same time, but on different timelines.
Yeah.
So, like, in both cases, it would be, like, 200 years or 300 years after. Yeah. I always assumed the same for Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. Like, I thought they happened at the exact same time, just on different splits of the timeline. I'll save my answer for this for the end. But what do you think, Holly? Do you think they take place at the same time, but just separated by the timeline?
I don't know.
You get into the timeline stuff, and people...
Right? It's pretty intense stuff right there. Yeah. Anything timeline is like, trigger!
Oh no.
Like, yeah, so I don't know. I mean, it'd be cool.
Breath of the Wild is obviously a prequel to Skyward Sword.
No.
That's what people are saying. Or no, it's either a prequel to Skyward Sword or a prequel to The Wind Waker, or a sequel to The Wind Waker.
I saw this post on Twitter, which I retweeted because I really liked it. And it was a comparison of like the Spring of Power and one of the springs in Skyward Sword. And basically they're identical. They look like the same. And except in Breath of the Wild, the one there is like much more deteriorated and, aged. And one of the comments on this, the person tweeting was basically like, I love the attention to detail in this. Like, this is clearly the same place, but at different times. And like, I love that Nintendo put this in, like almost an Easter egg. And someone commented on that, or, tweeted back and was like, wow, this is really cool. Breath of the Wild must take place after Skyward Sword. And I just thought, yeah, like, did you not know it yet?
Wow, this is really cool.
Did you just figure that out now, buddy? So
that's really funny.
Yes. As far as the Link to the Past that the question we're answering goes, my immediate thought would be, yeah, they're basically the same time, after like a few hundred years after Ocarina of Time. But in A Link to the Past, there's some dialogue boxes that you can find where they mention basically like the Hylian bloodline is kind of dying out in that timeline. So there aren't many people who are like pure Hylian anymore. Link being one of them. He's like a descendant of these Knights of Hyrule. Zelda obviously is. In Twilight Princess, everyone seems to be Hylian. Like just everyone in all the NPCs. And there's not really mention of that. So my thought would be, knowing that detail, that A Link to the Past probably takes place a little later.
Do you think like a lot of people think Ordon Village isn't necessarily a part of Hyrule, like it's its own area? So like the Ordonians would not be Hylian.
Right. Well, they wouldn't be Hyrulean. Because Hyrulean would be like anyone that lives in Hyrule. Nationality,
but not race.
Yeah.
So do you think, like, where Link in Twilight Princess apparently born in Ordon Village, do you think he would be part Ordon or part...
Well, he's Hylian.
But would he be part Ordonian, is the thing. Because he's living there.
It's true. See, I always thought the people, they live outside of the boundaries of, like, Hyrule proper. Because the guy... Russell, that's his name, mentions like, oh, you've never been to Hyrule before, to Link. But I don't know, I always just assumed that the people were like Hylians still, even though they live outside of Hyrule.
Saying like you've never been to Hyrule before, that could be like when someone lives, like they technically live in LA or New York City.
Right.
And they say,
but you're American.
And they say... No, well, what I was going to say is, like, when someone, like, lives out in the suburbs or, like, 5 minutes away from the city, they're still technically living in the city boundaries, but they're saying, hey, I'm going into the city, meaning they're going to, like, downtown. So it could be something like that. Yeah, he could be referring
to, like, Castletown. Like,
to where, like, you've never been to Hyrule proper.
So. Yeah. Or, like, I always say I live in Vancouver, but technically I live in New Westminster, which is still part of the... same greater Vancouver area, but it's actually a separate municipality.
How many Canadians do we have in the chat right now?
Ooh, how many Canadians? Raise your hand.
Give us that Canadian pride that always gets retweets and stuff on Twitter. There was someone came to the Discord group and said that they feel more comfortable talking to people because they were Canadian and they found out other Canadians were in the thing.
What?
And I'm like, are you afraid of, like, the Americans or the Europeans?
Well, No. I think America is just, you know, a little rough right now. So
there's some current events that
you know. Don't get me started on how I feel about America. You don't even want to know.
No offense, Jesse.
But with the original question, with the original question, I believe. I used to think that Wind Waker and Wind Waker and Twilight Princess happened around the same time, but then like A Link to the Past happened like a few hundred years later.
Yeah, that's what I'm settling on too. It's a little bit after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe A Link to the Past happens around the same time as like Four Swords Adventures. Yeah.
Which is like 100 or a couple hundred years after Twilight Princess.
Yeah. So I think that's where they would go on the timeline. Which means, because I thought when Breath of the Wild was just, like, before it came out and people knew, I thought it was going to take place between Ocarina of Time and A Link to the Past, and that would line up with Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. Because
I did too.
Ocarina of Time, each timeline had a 3D Zelda game happening directly after the split. So there was Twilight Princess and the child timeline, Wind Waker and the adult timeline, and I thought Breath of the Wild would be the Downfall timeline counterpart to just make it even across the thing. But I was wrong. Nope.
Yes. Dragon Break!
Yeah. Alright, so I think that brings us to the very end of the podcast. Holly,
I think so.
Who the hell are you?
Oh, I don't know.
How is Holly Wolf?
My name is Holly Wolf. Holly Wolf. I cosplay and I model and I play lots of video games and got a YouTube channel and a Twitch channel and stuff.
What could people find on your YouTube and Twitch?
Lots of behind the scenes on my photo shoot stuff, lots of modeling things, makeup, beauty, and video game stuff. So it's just an accumulation of my life. Basically, it's not like a, Oh yes, I'm also a verified fake gamer girl.
How long have you been a fake gamer girl?
My whole life.
We actually we have an interview with you that did fairly well, titled "Fake Gamer Girl."
Fake gamer girl. Yes. So so lots of cosplay. I've been doing lots of Zelda cosplay recently. Actually, we're shooting my Breath of the Wild Guardian armor extremely soon. Finally, it's a little warmer here. And we're also shooting my Twilight Princess Zelda. So both within the next 2 weeks, so that will be really fun. And I'm taking a break from Zelda, and I'm going to be working on a lot of Fate cosplays for the summer. So. And
are you going to be at any conventions coming up that people could find and buy some merch and stuff from you?
I'm gonna be at Anime Expo in LA. I'm going to be at E3 in LA. Those both take place in like June and July. Before that, it's mostly modeling trips. I got one in Miami soon. I've got one in Punta Cana, and but summertime, more conventions, and then I think I might go to Gamescom this year in Germany in August. I'm thinking about that. So Germany and that surrounding area, and lots of E3. E3 is like my
RPG in the chat, whose question I read earlier says, follow Holly on Twitter at HollyTWolf, and check her YouTube here at youtube.com/blah blah blah.
Yeah.
It's Holly.
Most of my socials are Holly T. Wolf.
And the YouTube is as well? Holly T. Wolf?
Holly Wolf.
Holly Wolf TV?
Yeah.
Okay. And Daniel, where can we see you modeling at?
We'll be modeling. It's a private show.
Oh!
On the guest list. Oh! Pretty short guest list, though. But just have to find my house.
Yes.
Knock on my door. I'll ask you for the password.
Are you a titty streamer?
Yes.
I get called that a lot. But you're a real one?
I'm a real verified titty streamer. I'm also a fake gamer girl.
Oh, okay.
So we're pretty much the twins.
Yeah.
So. But you can.
Losing Limo in the YouTube chat says, plug some Daniel at me.
Plug some Daniel at me.
So where can people find you, Daniel?
Oh, sorry. So you can follow me on Twitter.
RPG says I'm not plugging Daniel's anything.
Damn it, RPG! You were doing so well. Follow me on Twitter at CaptBurgerson. Same for Instagram. And those where I post all my things. You can check out my website, Burgerson Media, or maybe if you want to misread it, it's Burgers on Media. Sure.
There you go.
Yes,
there you go.
He reviews cheeseburgers. No, that's the joke.
I don't. But all the projects I work on, videos I edit, other things I tinker around with on my own spare time get posted there. And I have a YouTube channel that you should check out that I haven't posted on in probably a year.
Oh, wow.
NSHG Films, and like Nancy S, like, so what if you have a YouTube channel? H like Hollywood, and G like, good God, stop talking now, Daniel. Films like films.
Lol.
Go check it out, yes.
Yes, everybody who is watching, as RPG says in the chat, if you can click the notification bell to get notified on videos, because I notice it takes a few days before videos take off. Like, it'll notify like 1,000 people instead of the 60,000 subscribers that I have. And
YouTube's having a rough year. YouTube's having a rough year.
And then after like a week or two, like 2 weeks after a video starts to take off, someone will comment and be like, I've been subscribed to you, but this is the first video I've seen in weeks. And I'm like, what's the point of having 60,000 subscribers if only a few thousand actually get the notification?
Yeah, so click the bell. Click at the bell.
Yes.
Click the bell.
Alright, go follow Holly at Holly T. Wolf. Go follow Daniel at Capt Bergerson. And you can follow myself at GameOverJesse. Everyone's Twitter handle on the edited video should be up in everyone's corner. So thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Holly. And thank you all for watching.
Thank you, Jesse. Woo!